This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Right to line number 2, and the Liberal MHA for Windsor Lake and the leader of the official opposition, John Hogan. You're on the air.
Hi, Brian. How you doing this morning?
Good, sir. For Monday, how are you?
Good. You got lots on the go already. It was a busy weekend in the province.
Oh, my God. My weekends, John, I've said before, they honestly have become less predictable and busier than my weekdays. There's no question.
It's funny that you think you're going to have a quiet weekend, and then, of course, the news just sort of blows up. You never know when it's going to come from or where it's going to come from, but that's the beauty of your job and mine, I guess.
Yeah, beauty being the operative and arguably controversial word.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just wanted to chat. Obviously, I know you were talking about it a little bit this morning about the traffic delays coming east on the Trans-Canada Highway yesterday. I mean, it's just incredibly disappointing and frustrating. I've talked to people who were stuck in that line. Some of our caucus was actually stuck in the line trying to come home last night. And we all understand as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, highways are so important, and road paving is always a big issue in politics and in the House of Assembly, and we all understand there's going to be delays as we build our infrastructure across this province. But that was a little bit much yesterday. I don't think anyone has seen anything like that before. Stuck for hours and hours on end, just trying to get east. And really, what it comes down to, there was no communication. There was solutions. There was no heads up about the fact that this was going to happen. People could have staggered their trips. Maybe people could have left at different times yesterday, or even come in this morning if that was possible. I think we saw a news release go out last night from the Department of Transportation saying that we're aware of the traffic delays. Well, anyone with a Facebook account was aware of the traffic delays yesterday. I mean, it was a serious issue. We also have a lot of tourists who are traveling across the province. I mean, that's not what we want to showcase here in Newfoundland and Labrador, is that we can't manage to do construction and pave our roads so people can move freely across the province. So just incredibly disappointing, and I think a lack of preparedness, a lack of communication on behalf of the minister responsible for this issue yesterday. And I know a lot of frustrated and disappointed Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Yeah, it does. It speaks of just, reactive as opposed to proactive, as you mentioned. I saw the social media post last night, just in reaction to what had been happening, as opposed to something maybe last week. Or even when they were leaving
People understand that. I mean, if you get a message saying, look, there is going to be a delay on Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening, just so you're aware, it's going to be frustrating, it's going to be difficult. I mean, people want to know that. They appreciate being told in advance. Once you're stuck in a 2-hour line and a press release goes out after the fact, there's nothing the individuals can do at that point in time. And certainly the people who knew about this, not the contractors, but the government and the department who organized and arranged this work, they were well aware of this before this happened on the weekend. So, again, I certainly feel that there's a lack of communication from this government and from the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure. I think of some other projects as well that they've, canceled over the last number of weeks. Certainly the school in Cartwright is a big issue for people in that community. Members in that community and the kids and the parents were so excited and so much looking forward to a new school, which they deserve. Education is a key component of what government has to deliver, and the cancellation of that school is one thing. But the minister and the premier now, my understanding, has refused to meet with the group to talk about what the next steps are going to be there. So, again, no communication. You look at the cancellation of the courthouse in Stephenville Crossing. My understanding as of last week, they were waiting for a meeting with the Minister of Transportation as well, and that hasn't transpired. Government has a duty to act and make decisions, and we can question those decisions. But primarily, they need to meet with Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and communicate why they're making those decisions and what the next steps are, and we're not seeing that.
Yeah, and as far as those contracts go, I mean, we can certainly lump them into the communication and transparency and openness category, no question. I'm not going to judge right now yet. I don't have the numbers in front of me to say whether or not cancelling those contracts, both of them, Stephenville Crossing and Cartwright, whether or not obviously they're hell-bent on saving and trying to be efficient here right now for all kinds of reasons. But, I'm going to leave that for now. I've heard a lot that says, it could cost them more in the long run to cancel them and try to...
I don't mean to cut you out, but you don't have the numbers in front of you. But the other thing is the minister doesn't have the numbers in front of him either. He canceled it because he was concerned that there was going to be cost overruns. What are the cost overruns going to be? What's the cost to cancel a contract to pay the contractor for work that's already been done and potentially other damages that arise out of that cancellation of the contract? And what's the cost of what he says he's going to put there in replacing what the plan was now? So you need to do all that math before you make that decision. So you don't have the numbers, so you and I certainly can't argue about it, or debate it, I should say.
Or can't call it.
The minister doesn't have that information either, right? And it's the same with the hospital. He said, well, we didn't know what the exact plans and how big this hospital was going to be in Kenmount Crossing. When it was going to cost a lot of money, and I still believe that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians deserve a brand new hospital because our facilities are aging. didn't have the cost of what that hospital was going to be, and didn't have the cost of the renovations at St. Clair's to bring it up to speed to where we deserve in this province to have a good hospital. So again, decisions are being made not for financial reasons because they don't have the numbers. So I have to question why they're being made in the first place.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. First of all, I would hope and assume that the government does have the numbers, at least better numbers than you and I have, because we don't have access to it for starters. They have all the access to the tenders and the contracts and the needs and what needs to be done there. But the allegation is, of course, that the due diligence wasn't done by your government in the past year and the past couple of years in finalizing those tenders and getting it out the door, and the inaccuracies that have been alleged and the lack of planning and look, there's been fair enough criticism to go all around. They've criticized your government.
I don't know. I wouldn't agree with that, Brian. I don't think it's fair to say there wasn't planning on the Cartwright School. There's been numbers in the budget
I'm repeating,
years.
And John, for the record, I'm repeating what has been not my position. I'm saying that the allegations by them, that by that government, that the due diligence wasn't done, and they do have numbers. I mean, if they don't have the numbers, who has them, right?
Yeah, I guess I would push back, and not to you, to anyone making those comments. The Cartwright School, for example, has been in the planning stages for the last several budgets over the last several years. There was engineering plans, there was work plans, there was tenders put out, there was more than one bidder on that project. So this wasn't something that was done, a couple of months before the election. This has been in the works for a number of years. Lisa Dempster has worked very hard to push for getting the school in Cartwright. And of course, the people and the families and the parents in that part of the province as well have been advocating, not for weeks or months, but for years. So there was a lot of planning that went into that, and a proper tender went out. As I said, more than one bidder. The lowest bidder, of course, was awarded that contract, and all the proper steps were taken. So, again, we can debate that, of course. I'm happy with the facts that we have on our side about all the planning that went into it. You look at the Stephenville Crossing project, that was, I think, 19 or 20% already completed. I was out there last year and looked at it, and the people in that community were quite excited about it. They saw it as a new sort of center base to build and to grow the community there and have that center. So it's disappointing, and I'm not so sure. I would disagree that the facts are there for the government to make these decisions. We asked in the House of Assembly for numbers like this. We asked a lot of questions in the House of Assembly, and we didn't get any satisfactory answers.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it wasn't just me or even the opposition or the government saying it. The contractor themselves, J&J Holdings, had said there were several issues with the contract in Cartwright, whether or not it was the costly remediation or things that they learned as they went along with the contract. But look, again, I don't have the contract in front of me. I'm just, the two questions here are, the cost of delaying this new school for the kids and for the residents of that community, and the cleanup, which is now left like a really sad state of affairs right there in Cartwright, no question. So look, more transparency. The provincial government ran on this like there was no tomorrow. Openness, transparency, communication, and I will agree with this. And I know I'll get the emails saying, "Oh, there's an old Liberal hack again." Whatever. There has been poor, to say the least, and that's being kind, communication on all of this. Last minute, thrown out, and decisions that were made to blindside communities. It's just a harsh way to go about it, and the same goes for the highway work on the weekend. Just a heads up, boss, just some kind of notification for anyone. I plan, I'm a big planner when I travel, and when I run into stuff like that that's unexpected, it drives me. No pun.
It drives you. You get super frustrated. You know what it's like, whether you're driving or flying or waiting for a ferry. And it's delayed, and then it pulls up your plans. I know I just saw on Facebook. I mean, people, unable to get to the airport for a flight. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's difficult, unfortunate for that person. But I also saw people who were worried about getting in for medical appointments. I mean, that is serious concern. So it's people's health that matters. I mean, travel and transportation is all part of that. And again, as you said, we can debate all kinds of things, numbers and contracts and things like that, and that's what you're there for, and that's what we're there for. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's up for debate whether this was properly communicated to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians over the weekend.
And to listen to people talk about how they had to just makeshift movement to get first responders through, not to think about first responders and how would they get through that area. That one really bothered me too. John Hogan, appreciate the call this morning. You're out in front of it before the government. I really, as I mentioned earlier, I fully expected, at least an apology phone call this morning or a clarification or something. But still, crickets from the government. I mean, it's a holiday, but that's the MHA and ministerial work doesn't.
Trust me, when you're a minister of the Crown, there's no such thing as holidays. It's 24/7, especially when you're working with transportation issues for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So we'll see if we hear from them today. See if we hear any satisfactory reason why there was a delay in letting Newfoundlanders and Labradorians on the roads know what was happening.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call.
Okay. Take care.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number 2. And Gerald, you're on the air.
Morning, Brian.
Morning.
Didn't expect to get on this quick. On this closing the Trans-Canada and so on.
Yeah, not so much closing.
All the inconvenience it causes, and you don't know. You hold up the general public, and that could cause someone's death.
Yeah. Not knowing.
It really could,
I agree, Gerald. There's all kinds of reasons. Yeah, sorry.
You don't know. But it seems to me the general public is sort of held in a bit of contempt. That we are the last ones they'll think about. Like everything else. This is not only in this area, it was in others here. Now, the point I just wanted to pass on to you, that the closing of Trans-Canada, the RCMP do that routinely. I mean, I don't drive anymore, too old to drive and so on. But the number of times I hear the Trans-Canada is arbitrarily closed, it seems an awful lot, without being serious, There's obvious reasons and it must be closed. I mean, anyone with common sense knows that. But this looks like it's a matter of convenience for them. They can do their job easier, But all the construction workers and all the people that have to work on the Trans-Canada haven't got that option.
Yeah, Gerald,
they just have to work around it, except the police.
Yeah, and just for clarity, because of course it wasn't closed yesterday. This is the big cuts those deep cuts that they put down, in order to do repairs or construction work on the overpass, the Foxtrap Access Overpass on the TCH. Now, it wasn't closed, but it might as well have been.
It will be closed.
Yeah, and as far as the RCMP go, I assume you're referring to, when there's traffic accidents and that sort of thing on the highway. In emergencies, and then.
Serious enough to close down the highway? I doubt it.
Well, you know what, Gerald, the point is...
I wouldn't argue that point. I would just leave it up to others,
Yeah, no, but just for clarity, I understand what you're saying, but it might not be necessarily the seriousness of the accident as opposed to safety of the first responders who are getting there, as well as other witnesses maybe are helping police. There's a lot of people standing on the highway when an accident happens, whether it's serious or not, and vehicles are in disarray, and, it's common sense. They'll close it probably in the case of when you just can't get through and they have to do their investigation, especially if it's a fatality. But in any case, the RCMP aren't out there willy-nilly. The last thing they want to be doing is shutting her down because it's extra work for them as well. Takes away from the more important
work. Agree to disagree. What you just said, I mean, there's a time for it. But all in all, no, it's done too routinely. That's my opinion.
Yep. No, fair enough.
It should be questioned.
Sure. Look, the opinion is what counts here. You're more than welcome to it. Again, knowing the RCMP as long as I have and covering incidents and that sort of thing, I really feel like they do it when it's necessary. It seems like a lot, but then again, that's as a result of drivers and, the accidents that we have. So,
to me, they're just civil service with guns,
Okay, well, like I said, opinion is out there, and that's what we look for, and others are welcome to chime in on your opinion. That's what makes the show great.
Well, that's mine, and I'm sticking to it.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anyway, love it.
Thanks for taking the call. I wanted to point that out, basically.
Yep, no, I love it, Gerald. Don't be a stranger. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go to line number 2, and Ed, you're on the air.
Morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Pretty good. Thanks. For you.
That's good. Something's on the topic here last week. Basically, I think we got some help for a person there anyway. Mm-hmm. For a lady who's basically having problems. So, to a topic today, which has been ongoing actually for, as far as I know, almost 3 years now.
Oh.
It's about a specific, I'm not going to say where it's to, but they say it's in St. John's. It's a seniors complex for elderly people, right? It's privately owned, as far as I know, to a corporation of some type, not government one, but private one. The elevator has not been working in that particular building for like 3 years. And now, because of the elevator itself, they're now evicting people from the building itself because they are not smoking outside, because most people there who are seniors or have disabilities and stuff like that, they can't get out of the building. Some people have literally been not out of the building for almost 3 years. If you go up and down the stairs, some people have extreme have physical disabilities.
Sure. Yeah.
Some people are physically disabled. Some people are legally blind, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So because they can't get out of the building for a cigarette, for an example, of course, you know what they're going to do? They're going to smoke in the unit. Mm-hmm. So now people are apparently getting evicted from the units itself because of smoking in the units. Why is the elevator not fixed? That's the biggest question. After 3 years, it's still not functioning, apparently.
Yeah, that is, look, you and me and everyone else is asking that question right now. So 3 years in a seniors complex here in the city, St. John's?
Yep.
Again, you know what? I don't really have a problem with you. If this is a fact that the elevator is out, there's no real problem with you mentioning which facility this is that I can see of. It's a concern for public, for residents, and as you said, it's restricting ability to move or even get out. Maybe those people who, are having trouble, they have the disability of getting out and are being evicted, I'm sure they're probably even wondering whether or not it's a way to get them out. I don't know, but I mean, I can imagine where your head goes if it's been 3 years without an elevator and now you can't sort of move in and out of the building like you wanted to, even just to have a cigarette, which is not illegal, in society in general, but it is in most buildings. So, and even in close proximity to any building. So, you don't have to name the building, of course, but are you speaking on behalf of anyone, a relative or anyone or a friend that lives there? Or do you live there yourself?
Well, I know people that are in the building itself,
okay,
and they've been complaining to apparently whoever owns the building multiple times, but apparently nobody's fixing anything itself. Now I can't see them not getting any money for it because I mean I can only estimate this, but say for an example, you're talking about say a 60-unit building for an example, right?
Right, and is this just a seniors building or is it just general occupancy?
No. This is specific people who are up in age. It's not for young people or children and all that. It's specifically for adults.
Okay.
Right. So the building itself, as like I say for an example, had approximately 60 units, and say if they're getting $750 a unit per month, I mean, that's $45,000. I mean, I can't see how management can't afford a technician to come in, find out what the problem is with the elevator, and fix the elevator. Yeah, because then people wouldn't be evicted because they can get outside to deal with it.
That's assuming, of course, that's the case, right? That it's strictly a financial issue. If you have somebody who's put in a bid on a building, or maybe you just don't know unless you know. So, and to be honest with you, we all know some elevators and some escalators. I hate to say it, but the amount of time that they will be down for fixing and for repairs and that thing. My daughter just pointed out to me while we were in the mall on the weekend that the new elevator is in and working at the Avalon Mall. That was a while, too. They had to put in a brand new one. And I know in Atlantic Place from time to time. And I'm talking about escalators now, but elevators as well, We know St. Clair's had a big old problem with them. And I remember back in all my years of reporting, for a while there was even a shortage of elevator repairmen, or even the companies, like Otis and these other companies that do the repairs. So, there might even be an issue there, but 3 years is a long time, regardless.
It is. I mean, I've personally, I had to drop something off to someone, but I was there waiting for the person to come downstairs to unlock the door because it's a secure building. You can't get in and out unless you got a key, right?
Right.
So I'm waiting for the person to come down, and the way the building is, the front door is sort of on one side, and he goes up a bunch of stairways, right? Mm-hmm. So most people will go down the stairways, meet you at the door, which is like halfway between first and second floor, and open the door, pass the package, went back in or whatever, and go on. But here's the problem. I was there, and I went up to the door because there was two people there, and I was like, oh, okay, well, they're there, and me just open the door because I was just pass the package in. The gentleman was sitting in the chair that was there. Now, there's a chair there for a reason because, like I say, people got health problems in that place.
They need the rest, yep.
Yeah, and you need the rest. I mean, this is only up from the first floor to the second floor, so you're like halfway between floors. I mean, the gentleman was almost literally having a heart attack there because he couldn't breathe. And the lady was same thing. She was standing up, but how she was standing up, I don't know. Like, two of them were literally having that much health problems, just getting from one floor to another. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. You'd almost swear you'd have to call an ambulance for them, but they say they were fine and all this. Now, I know for a fact, because I live in the area anyway, there's been, and I have records of it, but there has been, because of this elevator route, a massive amount of first responders when it comes to ambulances.
You just took the next words right out of my mouth, Ed. Continue, sorry.
Right?
Yep.
Because, I mean, if you look at it, because of the elevator's out, you have emergency resources being used to get people in and out of the building of heart attacks or whatever, medical issues or stuff like that. And plus, since the elevator's out, you have a first responder going in, say an ambulance. They can't get the stretcher upstairs unless they go up through stairways.
How many floors to the building?
I do believe there's definitely probably 4 floors, I'm guessing on it.
Okay.
It could be 5. I'm not 100% sure on that. But, I mean, either way, it's restricting emergency personnel from getting in to helping someone. It's restricting the residents from getting in and out. Like I say, some residents have not been outside the building, literally. They've been on their own floor for like 3 years. And I don't know how any company or corporation or even building management would have the actual decency to restrict movement of anybody in a building, to even go out and get groceries, for God's sake, right? Or even put the garbage out.
Well, necessities or safety. You want to have an option. Now, obviously, in an emergency, you shouldn't be using the elevator anyway, but just the access, and it just boggles my mind. I'm still a little, there's an inspection type of thing here too. There are safety requirements for these buildings, especially with 2 or 3 or 4 floors. Is there any communication with the owners, with the landlords, with the caretaker of the building, with even officials, because they have to be those in elevator inspections. They have to be signed off, by provincial inspectors. So, is that the issue? Like, do we know it's an actual mechanical issue, or do you know anything about the reason?
This is the problem. Nobody seems to know. They just know the elevator doesn't work, and that's it. Now, is the elevator that old and you can't get parts for it? I mean, that's a possibility too. But the thing is, if it's an elevator, most of the elevators are designed for last for like 30, 40 years. So even if you can't get a part for it, make a part for it, because I'm sure there's many, many people out there who are very engineering and very mechanically inclined to figure out something to make something work in your seniors complex. Maybe maybe it's really, really expensive to replace the elevator. Obviously, it would be, but I mean, to even get it functioning to get people in and out of a building, no matter how long it takes to do it, it should be functioning now. As soon as it was mechanically down, there should have been somebody in there to actually fix and resolve it. Considering, if it was one of the person's, for example, relative that lived in that particular building, who owns the building, you think that wouldn't be fixed quick? Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, it would be.
Well, again, it depends on why it hasn't been, really does. And without any communication from them, we can just suppose here all day. And I don't have the particular building, but if people are getting evicted because they can't go outside for their cigarette, or they're leaving even because they can't, and we're not talking, as you said, these are vulnerable older people, correct?
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing is even if you try to move out, you still got to use the stairways to get the stuff downstairs or upstairs if you're even moving in. So, that's a big restriction, too. Yeah,
there's a lot to this. I'd welcome more information on it to try to find out why. I mean, if we ever put the name of the building out there, it might move things along. But from the people if there's no communication, we're left to wonder, and there's no real pressure on them, I guess, at this point. 3 years, though. I just can't get. You didn't want to name the building, do you? It's perfectly okay. We're not going to get nailed for that. It's just a fact.
Well, I mean, I can name the building itself. That's not a big deal to
Sure.
me. I don't live there. But, I mean, the thing is, I'm disgusted it was not even repaired or fixed.
Which building is it?
10 Pasadena Crescent.
Okay, so right behind McDonald's there off Tops Road.
Yeah.
Yep.
For some reason, it's not repaired, fixed, or maintained, which when it comes to the elevator. And, again, I don't know why. But, I mean, like I say, I have physically seen people almost having literally a heart attack trying to go up and down the stairs just to bring groceries into their own house, which is most disturbing thing you've ever seen if you've ever seen it firsthand. It's like, what's going on?
Yep. Yeah, no, it's not a good situation for them. Let's see if we can get some more response and at least we know where it is now, and we haven't named the owner or anything, but I think this is enough for now. Let's see if we can get some action on it. I got to get off to the break, but let me know if you get any kind of more information from the people you know who are staying there. And, maybe someone will be able to come up with it. It could be a simple problem, but 3 years seems like it's probably bigger than that. Thanks for the call.
I mean, somebody should have looked at it long ago, right?
Oh, absolutely. Pressure has to be applied, otherwise why would they?
Yep. Okay.
Thanks, caller. Appreciate it.
Bye.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 6. And Ray, you're on the air.
Yes, and a pleasant good morning to you.
You as well. How's it going?
I'd like to talk about a subject that I know very, very little about. Data centers.
Yeah.
I understand it takes quite a bit of hydro to run those data centers, and there's places distant from where hydro is right now who don't have sufficient hydro to put in data centers who want to have them. And Labrador got such an enormous flow of hydro there. Why not try and generate a bit of conversation about getting data centers put up in Labrador?
Yeah, and it's not just hydro, of course. They can run on large battery banks or diesel generators and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you, you mentioned the hydro. Labrador's maxed out. It's why projects like Kami and those sorts of things are kind of on hold right now until they get the third line. I mean, data centers take up massive amounts of power and water. So, yes, there's lots of water, but of course, the water that we have is, the infrastructure that's on the Churchill, for example, right now. As I said, it's maxed out, whether we're selling it or using it. So,
yeah, I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I said I know very, very little about it.
Yeah. There's a lot of consideration, goes into it, that's for sure. They require all kinds of elaborate, whether it's air conditioning or liquid cooling, of course, because it's all of those systems, when they all run, these are large data centers. So we're looking at them. It's a controversy across the country, given the electricity or the power and the water that they do consume in order to run them, and you got to cool them because all of that power and hardware and the backup that you need, it requires a cooling system because of the heat that's generated as well, right? So there are so many intricacies involved with these data centers that you do have to pick carefully and choose carefully when you're picking a location.
Right on. I thank you very much.
No problem. Anything else?
Nice day.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go right to line number 1. Margaret, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I just wanted to talk about a bit about the Labrador history.
Sure.
In the 1700s, when the missionaries and the ships came over to Labrador, the missionaries kept journals and the captains kept logs. And in it, they says that the only people they encountered were the Inuit, Eskimo people. And the Inuit community of Northwest River was there. And you had communities up on the coast like Oakok and Hebron and stuff. So we know that they were there in the 1700s. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering if that was the first documentation or is there earlier documentation? We know they were here in the 1700s. What about the 1600s? I'm just curious as to when there was first documented that they were here. Where would you find that information? I wonder, from the government or the rooms, or they would have the historical records, wouldn't they?
Certainly, MUN and the rooms, of course. Anything historical of that nature in our history, and I assume this goes back to the controversy last week. Does it over the cancelling of the Innu exhibit that was scheduled for yesterday to happen on National People's Indigenous Day, or National Indigenous Peoples Day, where, the government has basically said that, they have a record of several hundred years, 300 years roughly, but that was certainly insulting and taken offensively by the Innu, who say it goes back thousands of years. Now the actual documentation, I was looking at that last week myself and got tied up with a couple of other issues. Of course, there's no shortage of them on this show. But look, for the most accurate, it's a good question. The Indigenous peoples have their history and have their own documented history, whether it's in, historical documents that they may have or not, and may have contributed or passed on to the provincial government. And this deserves some deeper dive. It really does, to try to determine which history we're going to observe. And
that's right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take up all the time, but go ahead.
No, that's right. But there's historical records about Labrador, right?
Yes.
And they says, like, when they come here, the only people they encountered were the Inuit people, the Eskimos. Mm-hmm. Right? That was in the 1700s, so...
And even late 1600s in some Inuit, late 1700s, but also some late 1600s of Inuit history as well. Yeah, look...
I was just curious about it. How far back do they go, I wonder?
Well,
1500s?
That's the wonder for everybody at this point.
Yeah.
And which one what are we going to recognize? The provincial government, according to the provincial government, and this is why the controversy emerged yesterday or last week regarding this exhibit that was going to be on display in conjunction with the rooms. And when the provincial government said it only, technically for them, officially, it's about a 300-year history, that was insulting and sort of offensive to the Innu, who say it goes back thousands. So now we have to dig in and we have to decide who's right.
Yeah.
And far be it for me to make that judgment here on the show. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but the historical record says the only one people they met in the 1700s when they come here was the Inuit Eskimos. Right?
And you know what? This whole controversy it's not a bad thing. It's unfortunate the way this played out only a week before National Indigenous Peoples Day and the exhibit that was planned. You would think that might have been an issue that was raised if there was any conflict or contradiction or disagreement in the actual period of time.
There has to be, there's historical records about that, so there got to be more, haven't it?
Oh, absolutely. There have to be more. And now we have to decide. Look, now the discussion will be had. It's the first, the Provincial Archaeology Office, I'm pretty sure, says, right now that there's no evidence of Innu presence in Labrador between the 1500s and 1700s. And that First Nation sites prior to the 1500s, they say, according to the provincial, I believe now, I'm just going off what I looked at last week, they say there's no real connection to the Innu prior to the 1500s, which would, be in conflict with their claim that there's thousands of years of history. And what they're basing it on, we need to really have a deeper dive into it. Again, I'm not going to assess it and judge it right here on Open Line. I don't think that would be, I'll say the wrong word in the next thing. But again, that seems to be, according to the province, their history or their official record and stance is that the Innu first arrived, say, around the 1700s, whether that was late 16s or early 17s.
Yeah.
So now,
I was just curious as to how long the Inuit people were here. Do they know, or is the 1700s the earliest record of them?
Yeah.
Well, you were saying some of the late 1600s.
Well, and the Innu say that there are, examples or artifacts that date back 15 to 1600 years. And they acknowledge the 300 to 700 years, but again, I would leave it to people with more officialism or background or what's the word for it, or expertise in this area to make that determination. Yep.
But I was just saying, if any callers out there knows the answer to that, when was the first recorded mention of the Inuit people in Labrador?
Well, Inuit versus Innu. This last week only involved the Innu, the controversy, because it was an Innu exhibit. I would be more than open to hearing from officials with the Inuit, Labrador, with the LIA or the Labrador Inuit. Nunatsiavut, sorry, used to be the LA. And of course, there's the Métis as well, and discussions about the significance of the Nunatukavut. Look, it's a big discussion, and trying to pinpoint the actual length of time and the history that's going to be recognized by the province, this is not going to be a simple task. And they'll have to get all good heads together on all sides of this to sit at a table and decide what we're going to determine who was here first, if that matters as much as it should, you know?
Yeah, that's right, eh?
Yep. But I might invite, absolutely, I got to get off break, but I mean, I invite anyone with, we can discuss it all we want, but certainly anyone with the more...
Anybody with knowledge of the history of Labrador and its people, right?
Mm-hmm. Certainly, there would be the people out there with more first-hand knowledge than I, that's for sure, and that's what we rely on.
Were the Inuit people here in the 1500s?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. No, we'd be open to it.
Or did they just appear in the 1700s?
Yeah, and there seems to be a gap there, but I'm open to that conversation, and I'll leave it to the callers to jump on board that. I appreciate the call.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go to line number 1, and caller, you're on the air.
Hi.
Good morning.
I am calling because after hearing on Thursday and then having to do my own homework over the weekend about this, that doctors are looking to postpone MAID for anyone suffering mentally, with mental health being their only underlying reason, to be postponed indefinitely. That's a punch in the gut for people like myself who are neurodivergent, have other medical issues that can't be exactly treated, but don't qualify, I guess, to die. And that's disturbing. Because I have medical issues and I'm neurodivergent, every time I've met with a psychologist or psychiatrist, either I disclose my conditions or they see it on my electronic medical file. They say, we don't have the resources you need. And I'll ask, what are those resources I could benefit from? And I'm met with complete silence. The very last time I did this was in 2022, and it was via email because of the COVID lockdowns. And I said to the place, could you please tell me what those resources are? And I had to add in the email, this was the first time I did this, I said, do you not hear anything back? I said, I will have to assume that the real reason you don't want to see me is because I'm neurodivergent. I never heard a single peep after.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And now to see that the government is going, for me, postpone suffering for anyone suffering mentally, people like myself who can't get any mental health support, and 988, 811, other lines are, only if you're going to kill yourself that very minute. That is pretty disturbing, in my view. I have had to basically give up with all of it. And now I have to wonder, is there going to be a financial compensation for those of us that are suffering mentally? Because some people think mental health can improve. I have complex PTSD due to being bullied since preschool. I'm now a woman in her late 30s. And the only reason I'm still here is because past attempts have failed.
It's really a tough subject. So MAID, of course, medically assisted, medical assistance in dying, MAID law. So there is a report that suggests it be indefinitely sort of delayed where it involves mental illness. I think it's till March of next year, 2027. I think it was a parliamentary report came out and suggested this. There's a natural death process, and then they believe that this could be, there are issues that still need to be explored, as you just said, because it's complicated. For some people, the question is whether or not medical assistance in dying for individuals whose sole condition is mental illness, whether or not that should be further explored, and whether or not that's been covered off sufficiently before this law is put in place. You don't agree?
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying that. It's that I've attempted to seek help, and every avenue I've turned to, even local hospitals when the Waterford used to exist, and down by the Bowring Park, they were extremely rude and awful to me, and so much so, back about 11 years ago, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I went right to the liquor store and bought alcohol because of how they treated me. They drove me to drink.
That's really not a good situation.
So the mental health care is non-existent, in my opinion. And people are saying don't use AI bots. That has proven to be more helpful, unfortunately, than supposed care. I mean, I don't want to waste $82 in taxpayer money for 811 just to say, go F yourself, and we don't care. I've had that happen more than once. And I'm so sorry to everyone that's had a waste of $82 each time.
It's really unfortunate. I mean, the stigma around mental health is one thing, to appreciate how it affects different people and their different responses to it. Obviously, the concern for legislators is that should people with mental illness, and you can't categorize everybody into the same basket either. I mean, there are different types. There are treatable. There are people who are on one spectrum of it than another, that really should not be making decisions such as this on their own. And it feels like that is the concern, and that is why they're trying to refine it so that it does take into all the consideration all of the, all of the difficulties and complexities that come with trying to determine if a person is in their right mind to end their own life or go down that road,
Well, hopefully that the right decision is made and not the big mistake that was made back in 24 when MAID was postponed until next year, and they also ended because, as the former federal government said, Trudeau said, that the COVID pandemic was ending, so he was canceling. Well, he said at the time, it's wrong, merging Wellness Together Canada with 988. That never happened. I found that out myself, and from calling that was a complete lie. And 988 said we're only for suicide only. And it's been more than once said to me. And I'm at if you're going to kill yourself this minute, not if you've been for years, or if your complex PTSD is really acting up, or you got triggered or encountered something abusive today. No, we don't care about that. Go rot. Hopefully, suffering, financial compensation. It's only fair. It's emotional labor.
I could see that argument being made as well. Obviously, the majority of people who have availed of MAID in the last 10 years since it came into effect, have been for, terminal illness. But as we know, right, the stigma around mental health is that, people will say, if I had heart disease, would you treat me like this? If I had, brain cancer, would you treat me like this? They're trying to, we really want to have that kind of understanding so that they're both treated as an illness as opposed to some kind of stigma, there's something wrong with you. And we're getting there, but this is a really good example of the microcosm that's occurring, whereby trying to, reduce the stigma by making them similar afflictions, if you will, is a long, hard road. And when you still get into mental health, there is the stigma that says, that person's not in their right mind, so we can't allow them to make that decision. But that's not the case for everyone, and we know that.
I know, and as someone who cannot take antidepressants or antipsychotics or even hydroxyzine because of epilepsy, I am left in the dark. And I am lucky enough to get medical cannabis, but that doesn't work always. My tolerance to that builds up extremely quickly. because of my body's screwed up body I was born with, and I didn't want.
Well, yeah,
return sender.
I always say, like, we're all a little off, some more than others, and we all need we all need a little something, whether it's fresh air exercise or a nip every now and then or a draw every now and then, to put you right. And that's just a matter of fact. I mean, depending what everybody's metabolism's different. Everybody needs a little something to right the ship, if you will. The problem is here, of course, is that we haven't evolved enough yet to understand it. And my real concern is, the fact that it's driven you literally to drink is a real, that's, it
was only one day.
I know, and it was
I
kind
didn't
of
drink after, but still.
Yeah, no, I know you made it a light.
That's pretty bad.
I know you made kind of a light comment about it, but it's still, I bet there are people out there who actually are on a regular basis.
And leaving that place when they were used to be next to the liquor store, and now I'm surprised there's no liquor store moved to the new Waterford. Well, I'm very surprised about that, actually.
Yeah, let's not play. Well, they did move one closer.
Just give it time, I guess.
Well, they did move one closer. They moved it to Churchill Square, so that was close.
Yeah, but walking distance, if you don't drive, that's better.
I understand.
And it was even better when they used to have the clinic in Blackmarsh. When you could leave left and felt worse, you had two options: Canada or liquor store. So there.
There you go. I'm right past.
Healthcare is gone, but anyway, our mental health care is. It's, I guess, for the benefiting people.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Well, let's go to line number 3. And Yolande Potty Herman, the committee chair for Childcare Now NL, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning. It's Potty Sherman.
Yes, Potty Sherman, sorry. Yes, did I say that?
That's okay. You said Potty Herman. It's all good, though.
Did I really? I left out the S. What did I do there?
It's a new one.
It's a Monday morning. I'm sorry. Yolande Potty Sherman. Yes, of course. Go ahead. Right on the air.
Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Yeah.
You're more than welcome. Thanks. Now that I got the name fixed, let's go. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, wanted to call in and talk about the new federal funding that was just announced for early learning and childcare. So it was a great email I received on Friday afternoon, letting us know that the federal government has decided to invest $5.4 billion into early learning and childcare over the next 2 years. This is it's really exciting, and it's really promising to see that they've been listening to advocates, because you might have seen that our organization, alongside organizations across Canada, have been involved in really sustained advocacy efforts to try to raise awareness of the need to invest in early learning and childcare. And so, yeah, it's really great to see.
Yeah, good news announcements. And this is, as you may have been listening to the show, we try to get to the good news stuff as much as possible to balance out the other stuff. But Friday afternoon good news announcements are kind of few and far between and rare. They normally dump all the bad news on a Friday, but this was great news. And I saw it go across, and the first thing I wondered was how the provincial government, what role or what facets they will have with implementation or increasing their own spending towards this.
Yeah, so we're waiting to see that. We know there's an announcement happening today at 3:00 in Corner Brook at the Marina Redmond Center related to childcare. So we're hoping to see an announcement about really the renewal of childcare space creation, because we've had a stall in terms of the expansion of $10 a day spaces, and we know this is a big issue for parents who are still on waiting lists and are trying to get access to this really powerful and important program. So we're hoping that this 3:00 announcement is just more good news. Our organization has also been calling for fair and competitive wages for early childhood educators. So, essentially this injection of new federal money removes the excuse that the provincial government has used, which is there is no money. And now we're like, well, let's move forward. So we're really hoping that we can see some new progress here. Yeah,
I mean, the shortages and the wait list issues, they're trying to revamp how centers manage the enrollments, to maximize the most. But we know, and I know people every day, just encounters with friends or families trying to get a space. It hasn't gotten any easier. So let's hope this is in tandem with Friday's announcement, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have one of our steering committee members in Corner Brook is going to be at the announcement. So we're hoping to see some great news. But I think it's really promising to see the federal investment, because we were really concerned that the whole program was at risk. We were really concerned about the interest of the federal government in continuing it. This announcement really shows that yes, like they're invested, and I think it also really. It is a testament to the power of really sustained advocacy, because in December we did a click to email campaign. So you may have seen that hundreds of families and supporters from Newfoundland and Labrador alone sent messages to the Federal Minister of Jobs and Families and the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development here in the province. And I think they're hearing our messages, and so it's just important to keep it up. And this is just a great message to educators, parents, and other supporters who understand the importance of this program. To really celebrate the success. Yeah,
the wages of the staff too are the most, it's leading operators. Some of them if you're increasing the wages, how hard does that make it for these operators to continue with staffing, and does it leave more kids out of the system? And I know that the former Premier, John Hogan, was on earlier. He called the previous the system as it stands, the Education Minister, called it a mess, I believe it was, the $10 a day childcare. He called it a mess back in March, I believe it was, a story that we had here on VOCM. It remains to be seen. What's the biggest need and concern? Is it to increase the wages and in turn then the spaces open up and the childcare facilities expand? Or is that the process we need? Is that the perfect ideal world?
It's a package deal, right? So we know we cannot have high quality, inclusive childcare if we don't have educators that are fairly and competitively compensated. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? We need those folks to want to stay in the system. We need those folks to want to work in the system long-term, enter the field, and progress through the field, further their professional development. And we need incentives. There has to be reasons and rationales for people to remain in the field. So at the bedrock of the whole system is the need for compensation. It needs enhanced wages that reward people for staying in the field for 12 years, right? Your wages shouldn't only be $1.50 more if you stayed in the field for 12 years. It makes no sense. So we need to really revisit that. So at the very foundation, it is the learning conditions of the children in early learning programs, right? Those working conditions are the learning conditions. So we absolutely have to focus on that. And then we need to increase our $10 a day childcare spaces. We have to make it more available so that all parents can avail of the program.
Are the numbers still as high as 1,600 positions need to be filled? I mean, that was it back in the spring, back and forth when the House was in session and the opposition and government were going back and forth at each other.
Yeah, we're not sure. We really would like to have some more clarity on exactly what the unmet demand is. I think it's challenging because we haven't moved forward with space creation in the last year, right? There's been very limited childcare expansion. So we don't know, right? We can't really say, but we know there's definitely an unmet demand for childcare. So there's more demand than there are spaces. So we know we could build a bunch of new childcare centers and fill them because there's demand. Right. But whether or not we can staff them is the other question. So I think there's quite a bit of unmet demand in the field, but I like you, we were also puzzled over some of the numbers that were being thrown around in those debates, and would absolutely, appreciate having some more clarity about that. Yeah, because sometimes it doesn't. It's not a matter of just bringing new people into the field. It's also questions around, are they staying in the field, what the rates of attrition are, right? And we know this is a field where, because the working conditions can be difficult, it's been a field that's traditionally not respected. There's a lot of attrition in the field. So there's a lot of turnover, and it's about addressing the turnover, the causes of that turnover, as well as bringing new people in. Yeah, and look, we're talking about early childcare, early childcare educators, early childcare, just childcare at a very early age. We can't just fill it with, with people who are almost qualified
qualified or close to qualified, or because there's always been a suggestion, we got to get them in there quick. And then people worry that, are we doing our due diligence about the best staff? Are they properly screened? I mean, it's all kinds of issues here. We're talking about our children. So it's not just fill the positions. They need to be qualified to do it. Let's hope that this afternoon, we know that this $10 a day childcare was brokered between the former Liberal government and two Liberal governments, really, the federal and the provincial, without any real additional funding from the feds at the time. There was a 5-year extension. So hopefully what happened Friday bleeds directly into what happens this afternoon on the West Coast.
I mean, the thing is, we can't it's not just a federal program, right? We always say that it's a federal provincial program, as you noted. And so it's important that we leverage the federal dollars and with our own dollars to make this program deliver on its promise for all families.
But I guess, I'm just thinking of $5.4 billion. Was there a breakdown as to what, how that will be distributed?
Not as far as I've seen. I mean, if you think about it on a per capita basis, I think it would be around 70 million for the province, but we haven't seen any breakdown, so it'd be interesting to get more information about that as well.
Yep, I couldn't agree more.
And maybe we'll see that today.
Yeah, so we'll hold our breath. And look, if you have time tomorrow and you want to follow up on this call today with, just your reaction to what is announced today, and hopefully it's good news, just like the good news on Friday. I can't imagine. The timing seems too coincidental, but let's hope for the best.
Okay, sounds great.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 5. And John, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Grand, sir. Thank you. Yourself?
Fine, thank you. Brian, I just want to make an inquiry with regard to the upcoming hockey NHL season. Mm-hmm. I understand from my son, who lives in the U.S., that there's not going to be any NHL these Saturday nights now from CBC.
Yeah, so the CBC, the national network, will no longer have the games on Saturday night, which I grew up with and sat on.
Which I as well, yeah.
Yeah, sat on the floor on Saturday night, and after you got through Wayne and Schuster or The Muppet Show or Tommy Hunter, on it came. And whether it was the Leafs or the Habs, it was one or the other, and went back and forth. That was great. And so the deal, they are going to no longer show it on the CBC National Network, which means it's no longer technically free, and you'll need a subscription to get it. Otherwise, and I mean through whatever cable provider you have or satellite provider. Sportsnet will continue, so they'll continue to actually air the games. But as I said, you'll need the partnership that they had between the CBC and Sportsnet to continue with the actual Hockey Night in Canada brand is ending. But Rogers will continue to show the games. They got like a 15-year, or I think it's 15 or 12 to 15-year contract rights deal with the NHL. So they will continue, and they'll continue to keep the brand as well. So you won't find it on CBC, the national network, anymore.
Right.
It'll just, well, as I said, Sportsnet holds the rights to it here in Canada.
Okay,
so you'll need when you go to your provider, you can either get an NHL package, or everybody, people who have a satellite or a cable contract or whatever, you have a subscription to one or the other. Most people do. Others use different kind of streaming apps and that sort of thing. You can stream it on Sportsnet if you want, and that's another way to go. But on the boob tube, I used to call it. Sorry, I keep saying that. It just I don't know if that's offensive or not. But in any event, what we used to call it years ago. Those are your options right now. It just won't be on the CBC network anymore. They're going to continue on with just focusing on mostly Canadian athletes, women's sports, the PWHL, and other leagues like that. So depending on where he is in the United States, where does he live?
He lives in Georgia.
Okay, so I mean, even through ESPN or any of the U.S. networks and providers as well. I don't know if it doesn't have to be through ESPN. Obviously, he could probably stream it. But gone are the days of just turning on CBC for free and catching the NHL on a Saturday night.
Well, that's fine. As long as I know there's a way to access it, I could care less.
Yeah.
Who who supplies it as long as I can get it.
Yeah, well, that's the way I feel too. I mean, we're always going to find different ways. It's all about the money, John. I can assure you of that. They tried to come to. Apparently, they were into a agreement. I think it was already decided, but it was said that they just couldn't come to a deal on profit sharing, basically, of the numbers. So it's all about the money and who can make the most, and advertising, and these days gambling.
The way it always is.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 1. And Simeon Chakapesh, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning, Simeon.
Good morning. I just have a few comments. What transpired in Shehadi, Northwest River, the exhibit that was supposed to happen.
Yes, supposed to happen yesterday.
Apparently everything seems to be, everything is all over the media, social media now. Mm-hmm. But I only want to, I have to choose my words wisely because Sunday I don't really want to eat them. Anyway, my thoughts about it, and I've been thinking about it. My great-great-grandfather, his name was Atakat Jagabesh, and he had 4 biological children. His name was Simon Jagabesh, my grandfather, my father's dad, and he's buried in Northwest River, one of those graveyards across the river from Shehadi. Mm-hmm. And also her daughter's name was Alice Jagabesh, which her maiden name Alice Jagabesh, and her married name was her name was Katsunak, and the other one was Pinash Jagabesh, and her married name was Pokwe. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and I don't know where my great-great-grandfather was buried, but I know there's a name in Nutakwan Lake. We call it Kanahashwanaganist in our language, mm-hmm. And there's a name after him, Atakam Buskutnat with this name, as it means Atakas Hill. It's a big mountain, right. And I don't know where he's buried. I don't know the year when he was born and the year that he died. And I don't know her children, the age when they were born and they died. And my father, I don't know, he died, and I'm pretty close to 60 now myself. Mm-hmm. So that's, if you do the math right correctly, then it will tell you the age of my family tree. But anyway, that's not important. The most important thing now, I want to challenge Newfoundland government, PC government, Tony Wakeham's government, is to, if they want to rewrite our coexistence in Labrador, in our land, our territory, and I truly believe that us Innu Nation, I'm sure the general election is coming with the Innu Nation in next month or a couple of months from now, and hopefully the new Grand Chief and Deputy Grand Chief will be elected, the new board of directors will be elected, and I'm sure there will be new faces who will come on stream. And anyway, I think the Innu Nation should consider trying to go back to our history and do some archaeological work and have a massive study of our existence, mm-hmm. and who we were, who as we Innu people are back then, our ancestors. I know there's no oral written documentation from our ancestors because there is no language to write, and this language, the Innu people that we use today is developed by non-Aboriginal person and the missionaries especially. Yeah, the
Inuit. You mean the work that's being done on the Inuit Mon by university?
Yeah, but that shouldn't be admissible. I don't know whether it's admissible, but I think it's more thing that is more admissible, that the facts, artifacts, and the stories that was passed on by our grandfathers to us, those are most accurate knowledge, and the learning from them we have. But there is no oral language that was documented because there was no language to go by at that time during our nomadic way of life, and somebody had to come and try to be masters somebody's lives and their spirituality, their values, their ceremonies, the spirituality, and the beliefs. And that was the government and also the missionaries, explorers, and the Europeans like Portuguese, France, and all those. I can't go back to history, but as far as I can recall, the stories that I heard from my late grandfather, John Poker, and he was my teacher. He was my professor. He was my instructor. He's the one who taught me about the knowledge about the land and the navigating, the landscapes, the names of the places, which we have no English names in our territory. I mean, we got Sagas, we have Garisbishidmesh, we have Gamistasnos, and Gamistasnos means to me like the land is drifting. When you see the sand is blowing off, it's like it blows off all the garbage on the top, and everything is drifted away
and exposes.
And that's what Gamistas means to me. That's the way I translate it. And all other names, there's a lot of names that people don't even know about the history. I mean, there's a lot of things that the non-Aboriginal people don't even know about about us as people. Yeah, you probably know. You're going to hear gas sniffers, junks, criminals, all those.
All the negativity.
All the negativity, but the real Innu people we were the nomadic people. We hunted. There's evidence. There's a strong evidence. There's some markings everywhere within that province. And if the province wants to rewrite our coexistence, then I I strongly advise him to re-dig those the floods that late Joey Small would respectfully saying that to dig those graveyards that he flooded, that the province flooded, and Quebec and Canada, including Canada, to exhume those bodies that they flooded, and then the history will tell us. And that's why I think that I challenge the province today, and I hope the Innu Nation will stand with the constituents today that they should challenge the province and our existence and who we are as Innu people. And I think that's very, very important, because what they're doing is very, very, very disrespectful. It's like you spit somebody in the face here. You only existed 300 years ago. I mean, when was the John Cabot discovered this? What year and what time that he discovered? He said he discovered there were Aboriginal people here resided on this island. The Biotics were here. And the Micmacs were here, and even the Innu, according to my elder friend Ben Andrew, told me this story one time. There's a lot of artifacts that they found around the Avalon Peninsula somewhere. That it seems like there's some Innu people occupied that place as well, because the way the archaeology was discovered, they were doing the Mukushan, they were doing the same thing as Innu people they were doing up north, which is in Labrador.
Simeon, it's really unfortunate that it's come to this on such short notice, just before the exhibit. It's unfortunate there wasn't better communication. And look, we're doing our best to come to age with the realization and the acceptance of the existence of Indigenous peoples in this province well before us as in the white man or white woman. So there's no question. And you mentioned John Cabot. That's 500 years ago. If you look at 1497 and 1997 when we celebrated it in Bonavista, Vista, we don't celebrate that now. We're changing Discovery Day because of the acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples well before that, and that goes back more than 500 years here on the island. As far as the Innu goes, I mean, the artifacts exist, and it should have been, more of a consultative process for this exhibit, to make sure everybody was on board before something like this happens, because, the disputes that still exist between government and the Innu, it's always going to set you back. You're always going to be, Indigenous peoples, and specifically Innu, are always going to be We're going to set back those negotiations and those relationships every time something like this happens, that we have to have a dispute about it. And it's just unfortunate that it couldn't be, more, looked into, more investigated, more consistency, more collaboration, if you will, before something like this happens. And it's just sad that, you would have to take this action and cancel an exhibit, which really should have been more of an informational celebration, as opposed to now a controversial act that was canceled. This whole cancel culture, it just doesn't seem.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Well, I think it's, when I was in school, Brian, I think I learned about John Cabot. I learned about Christopher Columbus. I learned about the Vikings, but I never learned about my own ancestors. And it was condemned by the priests and the governments, and our culture was condemned. Our spirituality, the shaking tent, the drum, the tradition was the work of the devil. I said, is that the work of the devil? I don't think so. That, how do you take that? How do you digest that when people tell you you're practicing the evil stuff, all the stuff, the shamanism, all the shaking tent? That was a way of life. That was a way of our survival for our ancestors long ago, long before John Cabot and the Vikings and the Christopher Columbus discovered in this rock. I mean, how do you think we feel that as our ancestors? You're telling the province of Newfoundland, telling us your ancestors didn't exist. Where I was born, how did I get here?
No, Simeon, this came through the assimilation, right, of the indigenous peoples trying to adapt, or being forced in many cases, as we know, through residential schools and otherwise, being forced to adopt our cultures and the language of the white and the English. So, look, I've got to, Simeon, only because of the time on the clock, I've got to move on. This conversation needs to continue. There's been an erasure of indigenous culture and indigenous life, living the land and everything through, the absorption and, as I said, as the assimilation to the people that came afterward. And this is something that we're coming to terms with, slowly but surely. Culture, our culture today is coming to terms with it through amazing organizations like First Light, the advocacy, by Indigenous to reclaim your history. And this is part of it. And I don't think anyone would hold it against you for canceling this exhibit when you don't feel it's truly reflective of your history. And that should be accepted and taken very seriously.
And I have more. It's time to think about due diligence, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Due diligence.
And Simeon, all the best to you.
Thank you.
I saw, I always look back to our conversation. I think it might have been almost a decade ago now. I'm not sure how long, but, no, it wasn't a decade, probably 8 years ago, about your son, Thunderheart. I think of him often, especially when the inquiries are going on, and that sort of thing, and what a loss that was. Such a talented young man, and everything that happened to him in Saskatchewan. I'm always thinking about that, and we should have a chat about that again another day.
Yeah, and I think that's going to come in October, and I think that's going to be a really devastating report, and there's going to be denial, of course, from the province and his department, as always. But these are the words from the Innu people, and they're going to be discredit, and there's going to be a lot of denial within this province. I know that for a fact.
I understand why you would say that, but I guess at some point we can live in hope, and hope that this actually reflects it, and that we're getting there, So I hate to dismiss it outright. Let's cross that bridge, I guess, when we get to it.
Amen to that. Thank you.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 4. And Brenda Kitchen, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh wow, what a morning we're going to be! I know. I'm so glad that I know about all this construction. I'm actually going to be heading into St. John's myself later this week, so I'll be definitely checking out any alternate routes.
But I was going to say, just going to ask you, when you head into St. John's later this week, is that for the adjourned for submissions in your Protect NL case involving the protest at Confederation Building?
Yes. Well, that's great. I'm glad you know about it.
Well, I covered it until I changed jobs. Put it that way. So I'm trying to cover from afar.
I remember you, and we really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you're still paying attention, Brian.
Yep.
And I was planning on just letting people know. Yeah, we're coming in. We got it could be our last day of court is June 25th, Thursday morning at 9 o'clock there in Atlantic Place. But when I heard John Hogan call this morning, I'm like, he must think that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have very short memories, because the hypocrisy of hearing that man talk about how government should be meeting with the people and throwing criticism towards the PCs, when we, 3 women, were arrested for peaceful protest. We were trying to talk to his government since 2023, asking what we felt were very fair and reasonable questions about the proposed wind to hydrogen mega projects. And some of these projects also have solar plants with them as well. And we could not get any answers from the Liberal government for over 2 years, so we ended up doing a protest across the island, and then we had one at the Confederation building where we brought forward a petition with over 3,000 signatures asking for an immediate halt on these projects until there is some sort of renewable energy legislation in place. Government knew we were coming. We wrote Premier Andrew Furey at the time. John Hogan knew we were going to be there, Andrew Parsons, Bernard Davis. We asked them for a meeting. They wouldn't come out. They still didn't come out the whole week we were there. So we returned the week after. At this time, we were in they might be able to ignore a few people standing there with protest signs, but now we're in a 26-foot boat on a trailer. And you do believe that they still wouldn't come out, and every time security came out and spoke to us, we appealed to them that, look, we're here because we're tired of being ignored, and we want to speak to a decision maker. Like, enough is enough. Like, these projects, we're under the illusion that some of them are in a standstill or they've been abandoned, but from what we can see, there are quite a few projects still attempting to move forward. I mean, the one in Central that Andrew Parsons is a lobbyist for, they're open now for public comments until June the 19th.
It's the Everett, I believe.
Yeah, Everett. And just to hear John Hogan in there, and we saw him in the House of Assembly that day when we presented the petition, and Pauline, and thank you to Mr. Pauline, because he did speak to us, and he did bring forward our petition in the name of democracy. And when we stood in the House of Assembly watching that petition be brought forward, again, I'm going to point out Andrew Parsons never spent any time focused on the issues. They spent time making fun of us up in the galley. So for John Hogan to call in, I mean, the best thing that man can really do for Newfoundland government is to resign, because he is such a hypocrite. And at the time, he was also the Attorney General at the time of this arrest, because that's what happened. The government decided to call the cops on us rather than just coming out and talking to us. We were interrupted in Indigenous ceremony. We were handcuffed.
I will never forget watching the video that was played in court of the RNC officers climbing the ladder to get on the boat and actually physically remove people during, and you could hear the drumming and the singing in the background. I was shocked by that.
Yes, it is shocking. And to our understanding, we're like the first protesters that have been handcuffed and treated in that manner. So why the different standards? What is it about these wind energy to hydrogen mega projects that government did not want to answer? And I'd love to say that Tony Wakeham was different to deal with, but at the time he certainly wasn't. Now we understand there's been a change in government, and we've held back writing government until recently, officially as Protect NL, because we wanted to respect that they had quite a mess that they had to try to sort out because of John Hogan and his government. And we have recently reached out to Leela Evans, Minister Evans, formally as Protect NL. So we have a lot of admiration and respect for Minister Evans, and we're rating her as, in her capacity as Minister of Health and Minister of Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation. But I just could not believe the hypocrisy of that man this morning. So I was like, well, I got to call in now, because is he could have met with us. And as Attorney General, Bernard Davis told us he was the only one that had any sort of authority to step in and stop all this nonsense with the arrest. So, but he never responded to not one letter from any of the volunteers that wrote in there. So this man, I think he's a hypocrite. He should resign from the government, and he really needs to look at the money that he's wasted taxpayers by taking 3 peaceful protesters to court. Like you say, this will be our 7th court appearance on Thursday, and we're not sure if it'll be dismissed. I mean, we're past. Maybe the Jordan application will be evoked because we're past.
You have a charter application as well, right? The basis of this, wanting to throw it out, showing that your rights to be actually peacefully protest there were infringed. The argument being.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And even when we first showed up to our 3-day trial, the Crown immediately dropped 7 of those charges.
And it's only you now. There were 3 of you, but only you are actually still before the court. Is that not right?
Well, myself and Jennifer Whiteway.
Oh, Jennifer's still on the dock. Okay, because I know that something happened. As I said, it was right around the time I transitioned, so I couldn't remember exactly what happened. But yeah, so Jennifer Whiteway's still part of it, right?
That Friday, when the cops came on the boat and handcuffed us, and they dropped all those charges from that day.
Yeah, and now it's just back to the original. So the breach of act or regulations, the application, I think the charter application, and the freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression. Yeah, and that's on Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes, Thursday, 9 o'clock at Atlantic Station.
Yeah,
we're hoping people will come down. It could be the last court session.
It's a thing, like it's not just with this government, not even just with Mr. Hogan. It's past politicians. When governments are in opposition and they switch to government, the hypocrisy knows no ends. It happens every time. It's a cyclical thing, and it's, as I said before, as long as we have an opposition and a government, this is going to happen because they have to. When you're in government, you have to do differently. You have to do things differently than you did in opposition. It's just the way it works, unfortunately.
I don't know, Brian. I've been watching these guys, and I think that whether you're in opposition or you're the controlling party, you need to carry yourself honorably. And John Hogan should have been meeting with the people all along, and then he could stand there and proudly say, "We always met with the people, and the PC should do the same." But they need to carry themselves honorably, no matter which position they're holding in government.
Oh, that I agree with. I was just stating a reality.
Well, I think it's going to be up to the people, to pull this government in line. It really is. I know the power to the people sounds really cliche, but there's a lot of truth to that, and we can have a lot of influence. We got to let them know that we're watching, that we see what we're doing. We're watching these projects, and we're not going to stop at no for an answer or to be ignored. And, they haven't seen the last of us. We're certainly taking steps now to open up communication, starting with Minister Evans. But we will continue to be as verbal and action-orientated as we need to until the government slows these wind to hydrogen mega projects down and the solar farms.
Yeah, no, there's no question there. I've seen you fight through it, so I doubt, as you said, you're not going quietly into that good night anytime soon. Brenda, I appreciate the call, and I wish you good luck in court on Thursday.
Yes, and thanks again, Brian. Appreciate you covering it and staying on top of it. You're the best.
Thank you. And look, please do follow up. The resources are tight, and we try to get all of our staff, like the newsrooms are tight these days, not just here, but everywhere. So if you have a moment just to give me a quick update on what does happen, because I won't get there, but and sometimes they have virtual options, but not necessarily for all the courtrooms. So by all means, if you can take a moment and give me a synopsis of what happens on Thursday, really appreciate it.
Yes, I will stay in touch. Thank you again so much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number 2, and Michelle, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Pretty good. How are you?
All right, I'm at work now, just working on some graduation dresses, and I had heard the previous caller about number 10 Pasadena Crescent. Excuse me, a little dry. I'm at Tony's tailor shop working on graduation dresses.
Oh, you're Tony. Shout out to Mike and the boys.
Yeah,
and Tony.
Shout out to Mike and Tony. Yeah. Anyway, my dad had lived at number 10 Pasadena Crescent for approximately 7 years.
Okay.
And he had passed away in March. And I had
I'm sorry to hear that.
a heck of a time. It's life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
unfortunately, I had a hard time getting the furniture out. And as he said, my dad lived up on the 4th floor, and the elevator has been gone approximately about 4.5 to 5 years. And I've seen on more than one occasion, all the seniors in the building, a lot of them are using walkers, some of them are legally blind, trying to navigate the stairs because they go up and a little flat, and then they go up, and it's like all these twists and turns.
Yeah.
And they've got to walk through corridors which are not well lit. Now, it's difficult.
Yeah, those buildings are, 30 years old, 40 even? I remember when they were built. I grew up the bottom of Count Avenue, right down at the bottom, the old Count Avenue, not Count Heights area. And those buildings went up.
You slid down the hill.
Pardon?
You slid down the hill.
Yeah, right. So I did. Oh, we did, and then right into the park. But they've been there they've got to be a good 30 years old or more, maybe I would say. So I don't know. I mean, that seems. Was there any resolution or any explanation for what the problem was then?
No, just that there was missing parts. They needed some parts. The elevator since my dad was in the building, you would get in it and it would hit between the second and third floor, and you would hear this loud bang, and it would like drop a little bit. Every time it would give you a start. Going into the building itself, like the entrance to the side entrance, which majority of people use, it's down by where their mailboxes and stuff are. Mm-hmm. The entrance, you open one door and it's perhaps 1.5 feet, 2 feet, might even be 3. The second door, it's just like there's security.
Yes.
The main door, and the second one, it's so tight and so small. I know when my dad passed, for ambulance, for the police, for paramedics, for anybody to get into that building and to get up to where my dad was, the equipment they needed. If somebody's life was on the line and it was a medical emergency, to have to navigate all those stairs with their equipment, and unfortunately could end in a tragedy very, very easily.
An elevator out in any building where you have to climb flights is a bad idea. An elevator out in a home, in a building that serves, the elderly, people with different disabilities, people with different needs, restrictions and that sort of thing. It strikes me that this might be time for a good solid inspection of this building if there hasn't been one in recent days. I mean, as first just to get to the bottom line of what the problem is with the elevator, but also, as you said, these kind of areas, these restrictive areas, these small ports where you have one door to the next for security. Yeah, they were great in the day, but when you're looking at the expanded and the renovations that we make to all buildings and even parking lots for the disabled, and we make all of those accommodations. So I don't know how you can continue to operate a building for the needs of those people without an elevator and without these other changes that probably are long overdue.
Anybody who's in a scooter or anybody who's in one of these mobility scooters, it's almost impossible to get the first door open and get into the second door, let alone get from one level to the next. They've got to have a basement apartment. Yeah. And when the lower level, it's almost impossible. My heart breaks for them. And even bringing in a bag of groceries. It's so expensive for one small bag. They can't afford 10 bags anymore. So they're limited, not only financially, but now it's physically and such. It's ridiculous.
But the saving grace there is at least the grocery store is like a 2-minute walk.
I know, but then they took out. They took out one of the stores and they put in the other one. They took it to, I think it was They have Pipers now and such, but it's difficult.
But Sobeys is still there right on the corner, right? That's probably your first stop.
It is.
I remember years ago they put up a little fence there, and you couldn't even go from Pasadena Crescent over to Sobeys, which is the way we used to cut through. And then they fixed that, did the same thing in Churchill Square, put up a fence. I don't know what it is about fences and putting up barriers, but it just
the locals don't like it, so they put in their own gateways. That's
right. It's just a real tragic incident around there too recently.
It is.
I just wonder again about the. Tell me your father sadly passed away. Did you say in March?
It was in March, yeah.
And so he was a tenant there right up until then, was he?
He was, yes. He was there for about 7. I believe it was about 7 years. Dad was there.
Right. And did he use the elevator?
He did. My dad had major mobility issues. He had a number of replacements. He had pins in his ankles and his knees and his hips. He had rods in his up around his neck and my dad was broke up. Yeah. Major broke up.
And when I say he used the elevator, he used it when it was working, I should say.
He did, and he had great difficulty getting up and down the stairs.
Well, look,
he had 2 artificial knees, artificial hip.
It's out there now. We'll just say 10 Pasadena for now, because if the other man, if we hadn't have said that, you might not have called and known that we were talking about that building. So I'm glad you did.
Somebody needs to do something to help the residents in that building. They are trapped in they're trapped in that building, some of them.
Yep, and a lot of them probably aren't capable or, not really comfortable with calling a show like this. So we need people like yourself and Ed to be the advocates and relatives and other people who know the situation. So I appreciate it, Michelle. Thanks a lot for the call today.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
And all the best over there. I got a couple of shirts that I need hemming for a trip coming up. So I said, but tell the boys I'll see them soon.
I'll put extra buttons on it for you.
There you go. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's squeeze in a couple of calls. Let's go right to Wayne on line 3. Wayne, you're on the air.
Oh, how are you this morning, sir?
Good. How are you? Where are you at?
Not too bad. I'm on the Southern Shore Highway here now, but I'm calling about the state of the roads are bad enough in Newfoundland, as we know, in City of St. John's. I'm just wondering, when paving companies go by and gouge out the road and put tar all over it, is there a timeline for them to have it done, or can they just leave it for as long as they like? Because I'm driving on roads now 5-6 days in the city. Kittyvilly Lake this morning, 5 days ago, all gouged out, New Cove Road, tar put in it, ready to pave back.
Circular Road, Carpathian Road, you got it.
Yeah, but they're everywhere. I mean, I don't know if it's just me or like a regular cheap vehicle now is between 20 and 30,000. Base model pickup 60 to 70. Anything dressed up at all is from 70 to 150,000. And I don't understand why they're allowed to gouge out the pavement. If it's a little bit of pavement, 2 inches, fine. But if there's already a pothole there, when that's gouged out, then the pothole is deeper again, and people are hitting that in little small vehicles. And I got a base model truck. I do quite a bit of driving, but I don't think it's right for them to be left open 5-6 days long with people hitting them. And I'm not sure if it's just me, or is that a good question to ask her?
It's not just you, and there's a reference, of course, to that highway work that was being done as to, they intentionally left some of those gouges there to stop the excessive speeding that was going through the site last week that they noticed. So I got an email specifically talking about that it was an actual strategy to address the speeding. So the contractors made some cuts across the road to slow traffic. Now that's not an official line, but the reference to a couple of issues here with the past weekend work in the Department of Transportation makes me think there might be something to that strategy. And it. I believe that all the time. I used to think, what an inconvenience for drivers. But the more I see speeds around town, it's probably, kills 2 birds with 1 stone sometimes, like the work's got to be done, and they may very well leave it a little longer because it'll slow down traffic in some, and God knows we do need to do that. Losing the undercarriage, though, shouldn't be part and parcel.
No, absolutely. I mean, they could put in speed bumps like they're doing in a lot of places in the city, but that's all I wanted to...
Yep.
If somebody could call in, a representative from the city, and just explain to people, and then I wouldn't have to be calling in and asking you.
Wayne, you're speaking to the choir here right now, or to sing to the choir, because I've been asking all morning, just anyone, communication, openness, transparent, tell us what's going on. Nothing. Crickets all day. And whether it's because it's a holiday, that's one thing. It's not a holiday for drivers.
Yeah, but you can be sure the people in the know are listening in, whether they're working or not.
Yep. Well, let's hope for tomorrow. Appreciate the call.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. That'll do it for, the Monday. Yes, it is Monday. And a caller says, by the way, that the Foxtrap access road is now clear. So good news all around. First, I won't say all around. That's some good news peppered with all the other frustrations and some lack of good news that we had on the show today. Look forward to hearing from some officials tomorrow. Won't be a holiday. Maybe we'll get them on the line tomorrow, get some explanations on whether or not there was enough planning for what happened on the highway this past weekend. We'll find out. Thanks, everyone, all the callers and emails. I'll get to most of them. I'll get to more of the emails tomorrow or tonight before the night is out and respond tomorrow. Drive safely, everyone. Arrive Alive, VOCM cares.